Okay, hi everyone. Today is Tuesday, December 14th. Last time I said it was November, it was actually December. Live streaming from Lombard, Illinois. I'm Ben Greiner, Director of Apple Technology. With me today is Ross Matsuda, our systems engineer focused on Apple technology. And today's topic is the critical importance of onboarding and offboarding. And I have a lot to talk about that. We're going to squeeze it into as short a time as or half hour. But before I get to that, some Apple news. I feel we have to acknowledge the latest vulnerability that's wreaking havoc on the world. Did I say that correctly? This is the Log4j2 utility vulnerability. And apparently it's some type of logging tool that nearly everybody on the internet uses. I'm exaggerating only slightly. And everyone is scrambling to patch for this, including Ntiva, and working with all the partners that we have. The good news is Ross and I evaluated the tools that we use the most, and we haven't yet found any tool that is affected on the Apple platform. Correct, Ross?
As far as I've seen,
not yet.
Adobe released some great information just verifying that they don't use, nor did they have any plans on using that particular piece of technology. And neither does Splashtop, which is one of our most commonly used remote access pieces of software. So far, so good.
Yeah, there was one backup software that we used to use that was mentioned, but we've gotten away from that. So far, we'll keep monitoring the situation. And I know the greater Ntiva, which deals mostly with Windows and networking equipment, has been working hard on this and will continue to do so. Also, just something that will affect a lot of our clients, although it's not specifically Apple related, but Microsoft pricing, Microsoft licensing for all their products, price increase going up March of next year. And we're working on hosting a webinar, or at least Ntiva is. Ross and I won't host it, but Ntiva will be hosting a webinar with details early next year. Yesterday, was it yesterday, Apple released iOS and macOS updates, or early this morning?
I believe it was yesterday. That's why I got the RSS ping.
Okay, so iOS updates and macOS updates, iPad OS updates. Was TV OS updated? Watch OS? I don't even know.
I'll take a look, but I'm going to say probably. I'm going to say these things now tend to come in pretty big waves.
Right, and the good news is as far as we can tell, there are no urgent security patches in these updates. Is that fair to say, Ross?
I haven't spent as much time diving through the iOS ones, but I can say that for Monterey 12.1, it did not appear to have any security components. It's a couple bug fixes, a couple new features, a lot of the features that Apple advertised Monterey as supporting. Some of those are getting a little bit more of a drip feed release. And this is one of those. This is the update that's going to include SharePlay, universal control still coming on a little bit later down the line. But the good news about that, at least for the Mac side of things, is that adoption of the 12.1 update, while of course recommended, is not nearly as urgent as when a point release comes out. So that explicitly is for dealing with the security vulnerability. The other way we could tell that this wasn't a security update was because it was just a patch for Monterey. We didn't get a similar update for Big Sur and Catalina. And normally when we see the security updates, they'll hit the 3 most recent operating systems instead of just one. Okay,
cool. And SharePlay is that ability to watch a video, like you and I could watch a video at the exact same time.
Correct.
Remotely.
Correct. Yeah. Yep. It's pretty much watch parties if you're familiar with that feature in YouTube.
Okay. So it used to be, you'd have to say, everyone on the count of 3, click play. And now it just does it somehow. I have no idea how. I do want to mention iOS 15.2. I did update my iPhone this morning, although typically I would recommend iPad first, iPhone second, just because you still rely on your iPhone, probably, in your pocket to get some things done. And then the Mac OS last, after we've had some time to kind of evaluate it. And Ross will be pushing out nudge updates, or the team. Ross helps build those, pushing out these nudge updates. These all require restarts, and that's a kind of a pain, right? In fact, I timed my phone to see how long it took. It's really hard to do that because I pretty much forget about it and walk away and come back. And then it's like, okay, hit the install button now. So I timed it and it's kind of useless, but it took me an hour of just starting it, forgetting about it, coming back, hitting install. It took about an hour. iOS has that great feature where it will prompt you, would you like us to install tonight? While you plug in, that's the best way to do it. And I certainly would recommend that option. Although it does mean when you wake up in the morning, you're going to have to enter your passcode to get into the phone. And for me, because I have a SIM card code, I also have to enter a passcode to unlock my SIM card. That's just an extra security feature that you can enable. I did want to mention that there were two fixes that were mentioned in iOS 15.2. One is calendar events may appear on the wrong day for Microsoft Exchange users. That has been fixed. I feel like we might have seen that issue somewhere, Ross. I don't know if I'm just remembering incorrectly, but I feel like somebody contacted us at one point, and they were having that issue. And we did discover they were running not 365, but an old version of Exchange. And we said, well, you should just go to 365 because it doesn't happen there. So apparently that was a known issue that has been fixed. I still recommend you go to 365 and stop using Exchange. But the other thing was Apple ID feature for digital legacy, which I personally am interested in. It allows you to designate people as legacy contacts so that they can access your iCloud account and personal information in the event of your death. And obviously, we hope no one here dies anytime soon, although we know we're all headed that direction. But I have seen family members, pass away, and trying to get accounts or access to accounts is a real problem. And I think this is the way the world is headed. We've got to have a method for this. Right now, if you don't have a method, the best method I know of is just have your master password to your password manager, available to a designated loved one, and so that if they ever need to get into your accounts, they can. Okay, let's dive into today's topic. And let me just share Keynote. Okay. Well, if I hit play, do you still see Keynote, or maybe not? I think
Yeah, still just see the Keynote interface rather than the actual presentation.
Okay. I'm on one screen today, which is a little awkward.
Interesting.
But here we go. This should work.
Yeah, that looks much better.
You see it? Okay. Get some stuff out of the way here. So today's topic is onboarding and offboarding. And I want to talk a little bit about the ideal onboarding. Let's start with that, and then we'll backtrack to offboarding. And the ideal onboarding is zero touch. That's what we're all trying to get to. And let's just walk through what that looks like. And Ross, chime in here, ask questions, comments, point out something I say incorrectly. And anyone who's joining us, I see we have several participants, please chime in with questions. So with zero touch, first of all, it is super critical that you buy from either Apple or an authorized reseller. I'll just be blunt with you. Authorized resellers are really hit and miss about this system. In fact, I just had a conversation this morning with an authorized reseller who was pretty much clueless. This is a big brand name company. I'm stopping short of mentioning, but they pretty much had no clue how this works, and that's super frustrating. So if you don't yet have an ecommerce.apple.com account, please get one. It's free. We can help you set it up. Any Apple business team in a retail location can help you set it up. And the next best thing is to work with a local Apple store and an Apple business team. The Apple store is much better at doing this. They can also occasionally drop the ball, but at least now they have a way to fix it. So even if they didn't get it right the first time, they can fix it. But if you go to ecommerce.com, it will work. So you gotta know where to purchase, and you gotta purchase from a proper location. So once you've purchased, once you have a place, an e-commerce store, you're given an Apple ID. The Apple ID has to be entered into your Apple Business Manager. And I'm going to use, sorry, Apple ID is kind of the incorrect term. It's like Apple account number. And I've heard several variations of this Apple account number, so I'm sure I'll goof it up. But the point is, you get a unique number Apple assigns you that gets attached to your Apple Business Manager. Once again, don't worry about this. We can help you with all of this. The point is, you need ecommerce.apple.com. You need business.apple.com.
And to confirm, that also includes school.apple.com.
Yes,
since
thank you, Ross.
Based on the sphere we work in, the vast majority of our clients are going to be businesses, so we say that more frequently. But this functionality is entirely identical if you're in education and you have an Apple School Manager account.
Yes, thank you. And then the last piece that you need is an MDM, and we used, that's the logo for Adobe, so I put that in there. That's what we use. Mobile device management, doesn't really matter where the URL is, don't worry about it. That's the pieces that you need. So what happens is when you buy a new computer, ideally from the Apple Store, information gets sent to Apple Business Manager, which then gets sent to the MDM. And then when your computer out of the box comes online, it connects to the internet, has a conversation with the MDM server, says, here I am, this is what I look like, what do you need me to do? The information gets sent back, and you get a series of apps and profile settings. I'm oversimplifying it, but that's the general sense of how it works. Now we have a computer, but we also need an account on there, right? This is your new hire, your new onboarding. So that person needs to log in to their computer. In an ideal situation, I would recommend, excuse me, I would recommend using what we call Adobe Identity to get authentication from either Google, Microsoft, or Okta. That would allow your new hire to log into the computer using the same credentials they use for email. And that's handled by Adobe Identity. Not that you need to know that, but that's just what it is. So you'll hear it talked about. The other piece that you need today, ideally, is a managed Apple ID. And that managed Apple ID comes from Business Manager. So another reason why you need that account, so that you can get your managed Apple ID. So now we have a person sitting in front of a computer, logging in with, let's just say, Microsoft 365, which I should show here, if federated, I should draw a line between Adobe Identity and Apple Business Manager. Well, actually, technically, it's only with Office 365 today, right? You can only federate with 365.
I believe that's correct.
With federation, your credentials for 365 and your managed Apple ID are the same, the exact same, which is pretty cool. And that's what we're trying to get to with a lot of our clients. And then what this represents is your new hire still needs accounts online. We all have online accounts, software as service accounts. It's through a web browser. And they're probably going to want to supplement with Mac Manage. Mac Manage is the self-service tool that gets installed on all the computers. And, I should just share my entire screen. That way I can jump in and out. I do this every time, Ross. Why do I do this every time?
Yeah, it's force of habit.
Just desktop, share. Okay, you can see my screen. I'm back.
Yep, so far so good.
Okay. So here's support menu. Everyone who's running, is it 1015 and higher?
Big Sur and later. So
Big Sur
Mac OS
later.
11. Yep.
11 and later. Okay, we'll have this new modern support menu. And you can see, we talked earlier, there's an update for Mac OS. So that's why I've got the little one here. And actually, if I click on that, it takes me right here. And Ross and I were talking about this earlier. I've been periodically checking this all morning, and this is all I see. So this can happen. I don't know if it's my internet connection or Apple's, but it can happen early on when a release like this is released. I don't know if the servers are inundated or what, but it'll probably clear up in the afternoon or maybe tomorrow.
Yeah. Just give it a little bit of time for demand to get out of the peak position it's probably in right now.
Okay, so in an ideal, get back to zero touch. In an ideal zero touch onboarding environment, we have a lot of automations here, but for one reason or another, it's not always a good idea to automate everything. Meaning not every application or not every suite. And I'll use Adobe Creative Suite as an example. It's not ideal to just dump that on a machine upon first unboxing. It's a very big tool set. So in that case, well, do we even put that in Mac Manage, Ross? Not to complicate things, but
No, so we at this point, Mac Manage should contain the Adobe Creative Cloud desktop app.
okay.
And so that's something you can install to help your employee log in with their Adobe
Here it is.
credentials and then source just the applications they need rather than saying, oh, every single employee at my organization is going to need Photoshop, InDesign, Premiere, After Effects, and just dump, 20, 30 gigs of apps on every machine right out of the box. This way, we can get them the tool to get into the portal, and then they can handpick the apps that they actually want to use.
So you can see here, Adobe Creative Cloud, I actually have it installed, and it is right here. And if I go here, I actually only have two. Oh, skip the tour. I only have a couple apps installed. So I'm one of those examples. I have Photoshop and I have Illustrator, and I guess Camera Raw plugin. You may have more. I could install more. I could install Lightroom, Premiere, others. The point is, this is kind of a self-service. You get the apps that you need. And I want to address something here. And if anyone can chime in on what they suggest, historically, actually going way back to when I first started using computers, nobody had accounts of any kind. You just sat down and started working at a computer. It was like a desk with an open piece of paper. You didn't even have to log in to the Mac. You just sat down, turned it on, and got to work. That's like iOS 9. But over the years, now we all have accounts to log in. We have accounts to get into our email, into our web apps. We have a lot of accounts. There was a time period where it made sense for us as an IT provider to take a computer brand new out of the box, set it up with everything, including all the apps, all the logins, all the passwords, set it up and give it to someone, and maybe at the very least, give them a login, a password that they may change later. And that was all they needed to get to work. Well, the line of thinking has changed due to the complexity of all of this and through automation. Automation, we can give people the tools they need, but they really need to take ownership for those accounts. Like, we should not know somebody's login. That's a security issue. I don't want to be responsible for knowing your login. I don't want to be responsible for knowing a login that you may or may not change. Like, I need to require you, if I do know it, I need to require you to change the login or the password. The point is, the line of thinking is, rather than IT create this magical box that nobody understands how it got built or what's in it, the end user should go through the process of participating in this in some way. It doesn't take that much effort. In fact, as we get more and more integrations, like we talked about here, where we're federating, so you only have one login for all things. That's the goal. It's never fully achieved. It gets even simpler. You need to know your email address and your password and your two-factor tool, and you need to protect all three of those. And well, the email, people are going to know, but you got to protect your password. You got to protect your two-factor. That's your responsibility. IT cannot do it for you. So I will admit, and if anyone has any ideas, let me know. We sometimes struggle to move an organization who considers us doing all this for them as white glove service, and trying to get them to a different level of white glove service, which is fully automated with the end user taking responsibility for the last mile. That is a much better experience for everyone. The user, the new employee, feels like they're more in control. They get to unbox, they get to log in, they know how it works. And I think it makes sense. But I admit I still struggle to articulate that in some environments where they feel like we should be doing it all. And in fact, we can't do it all, especially with two-factor. Like, a lot of this stuff requires two-factor that we cannot do. It has to go to the individual. So am I making sense so far?
I sure think so. And yeah, it's the idea of if an employee is more engaged with their technology, from that initial jumping off point, it'll give them a better sense of comfort, familiarity, and ownership of the tech itself.
Yeah.
And yeah, no, and in general, I have a feeling that's more, the direction that things are going to be going in as we keep moving forward.
Yeah. So the last icon here looks like I was missing was just that keychain, which is kind of representing the passwords that the user needs to control. So on the back end, Ntiva or your IT provider may help set up your web accounts, but your new employee is going to use Mac Manage to kind of get to the last piece and to log in and store their credentials, whether it's in Keychain or in 1Password or some type of password manager. And then, of course, in our world, Ntiva is here to support that individual if they run into any issues or have any questions. And everybody's different. Some people, they want and need a lot of help. Other people, they're actually annoyed if we try to help them. They want to do it themselves, and that's fine. In fact, this whole process is really built around, let's automate as much as we can. As I mentioned earlier, let's automate everything up until the last, percentage or the last mile. Like, this has to be touched at some point by the individual who's going to use the computer. But the zero touch means that IT doesn't have to touch it. And because the technology is so rapid in change, rapidly changing, we have something to iterate on, which means I feel like unless you onboard every week, it's really hard to get this process nailed down to perfection, because you may have onboarded last month and this month everything's different. In fact, you give a computer to someone today, now they've got updates to apply, whether it's on their iPhone or their Mac. So it's a moving target, but we can get them most of the way there. And if they do call in for support, we know the baseline, we know where they are and where they should be, and we can help resolve it much more easily. So let's take it one step further. This is where my own personal workflow choices are. I like to see a hello form or a hire form, and then we'll get to terminations in a minute, or a goodbye form. And we have those under Mac Manage, under Forms, but not if I have Adobe in there. And this is a shortcut, a way to get to it. And it'll take you to a website where we used to have a lot of forms. We now have two basic forms: a new Mac form, if you want to get a new Mac, we ask some basic questions, and then a hello goodbye form, both on the same page, but obviously fill out one or the other. Now, this is definitely for our legacy Forget Computers clients, but we are working on integrating this into the greater Ntiva in some way, so that eventually it's a process the same for everyone. The general idea is we need some information to set up your accounts, and we need some information to terminate your accounts. And even though it's tied to individuals, it often lives on the web. So let's take a look at we got a chat question. Oh, 100%. Yes, thank you, David. I'm not sure what 100% that was, but thank you. So let's take a look at what that looks like from a termination standpoint. We have to say goodbye to somebody. And so I eliminated, well, that seems to be a little aggressive. Here we go. Here's where I want to be. So here's where we were. We don't need the Apple Store anymore. We don't need, let me get through my forms again. We don't need the user accounts, but we still have a lot of stuff sitting out there that has to be cleaned up. So if you don't tell us about a termination, stuff could live on indefinitely. And those could be online accounts at 365. Those could be other web accounts. Those could be your managed Apple IDs and Apple Business Manager. So let's say we are told about an employee and we do eliminate those accounts. Now we just have a computer. We have a computer technically with no account tied to it other than an administrative account. Most everyone will have that. But I want to mention this because this is what so many people don't realize is this computer, because it was purchased through the zero touch system, which gives us lots of automation benefits, it's still in the system. And the reason I mention this is sometimes people think, oh, we don't have an account on there anymore. I'll just give that to an employee to take home or to my family or friend. We're done with it. I don't need to let Ntiva know, but you actually do need to let Apple know, because that will live indefinitely in the Apple system until you literally kick it out. So once it's removed from Apple Business Manager, then it is free to be you and me. And for anyone here as old as I am, you'll know what I'm talking about when I say free to be you and me. Ross, you probably don't know what I'm talking about.
It's enough in the cultural zeitgeist.
Okay.
But about this in particular, and just to clarify,
Yeah.
If you have an employee who is leaving and you want them to go ahead and take their machine, or they would like to purchase the machine from the organization and take it with them, that's a-okay. And as soon as we release it from Apple Business Manager, we can release it from your MDM, from Adobe, as we normally do. And that'll make sure that all of those, bigger macro level tools are off the machine. And it also prevents a really annoying surprise for the future for that owner. Because as long as that computer is linked up with Apple Business Manager, and until we've manually removed that, if they erase that machine just to set it up for one of their family members, or just as a piece of housekeeping, as soon as that erased machine boots back up, it's going to start this loop again. You turn it on, you get online, choose a language. It's then going to see, oh, I'm owned by this organization. I need to get enrolled, and it's going to start the zero touch workflow again. And so to make sure that they can break out of that cycle, it really is imperative that you inform us or your other IT providers so that they can take care of that for you.
And we have had clients call us saying, hey, one of our former employees is trying to upgrade their Mac and they can't. Why is that? It's like, well, what's going on? And it turns out they gave the computer to the employee. They didn't tell us. There's a OS blocker to keep everyone on the same version. And of course, now you've got a computer that doesn't need to play by those rules, but is restricted by those rules. So some weird things can happen until you release it. You do have to intentionally release it. You have to go into Apple Business Manager and remove it. Removing it from MDM is not always enough. It could still be managed by a business manager. So you need to kick it out of there. And our initial understanding was it can only be kicked out once, meaning once it's kicked out, it can never come back. Ross, I think you learned something this morning that tells us we might have a way of getting things back if we need to. But it's still a good idea to consider. Like, it should really only be kicked out when you're done with the computer. You're giving it away, you're recycling it, or you're selling it. It's not part of your organization anymore. Okay. Anything else you want to add to that, Ross? That's all I got so far on the zero touch. Well, I do want to mention a couple other things, but talk while I'm navigating if you want.
Sure. No, I mean, that covers most of the bases. The goal here is to be able to have a really solid workflow to go from purchasing a new Mac for an employee to getting it in their hands without IT needing to get their hands physically on the device. That ensures that when the user receives that device, they can go through Apple's, heavily researched and curated unboxing experience. And hopefully that we've got all the infrastructure ready for your organization to make their login process really smooth. The other part about this that's always worth mentioning is even after that first employee has been on that machine, if we've got this infrastructure set up, having a rapid return to service for a machine that's changing hands, that can also be done, because now you can take that Mac and instead of going in there and deleting one user account, and maybe there's some other applications there that the previous employee had that other ones may not want, you can just erase the thing. Just erase the Mac, let it go through that zero touch setup process again in the hands of the next person using that machine. And so by setting up this infrastructure for new Mac purchases, it's also possible to get some of the benefits of that for moving devices between employees for existing computers once they're in this zero touch environment.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I did want to draw attention to this new employee onboarding K-base that it says it was updated a month ago, but I know we created it a few years ago. In fact, I think I was reacquainted with this because Adobe referenced it in one of their live stream or one of their webinars. And this is kind of a very loose, high-level framework. I would encourage everyone who's interested in better onboarding to take a look at, because it really talks about how there are three different views of this process. There's the organization view, which you should consider. There's the new employee perspective, what their experience is like. And then there's the IT team perspective, whether you have your own team or you work with us. And that's, to be fair, more of what we talked about today, our own personal view of IT. But the employee has a view and the organization has a view. And there's so much room for improvement, at least in most organizations. And sometimes it's as simple as getting HR involved to work with IT to make this process go smoother. I can't tell you how many times we've been asked to help somebody onboard, tomorrow, and we say, well, what computer are they going to use? And they're like, I don't know, and they don't have a computer. And with supply chain issues today, you cannot always get a computer same day or tomorrow. And certainly not the one that we would recommend. There's always typically a tweak from the standard. I don't know why that is. I don't know why. I actually, the new M1s, I think, are less, we spend less time tweaking those than we ever have. But in the past, we almost always had to add memory to the Intel machines and sometimes hard drive storage. So if you Google this new employee onboarding, or I don't know, I wouldn't Google it. I would go to support.forgetcomputers.com and search on it. I think that's helpful. Send me any feedback on that. And I think that's it. We talked about the forms. I showed you the process. We talked about the K-base. We're a half hour into it. I just want to mention a couple more K-bases and before we go. And that is do not disturb. I didn't type that right, but it found it. Okay, so this is a recent post 12 days ago. Apple's evolution of do not disturb helps you focus. I think this is worth reading and worth spending some time with. I personally have embraced this concept. However, I've also taken it too far. Like I was expecting a phone call and I kept missing it. Why am I missing it? Oh, because it had automated the process of enabling do not disturb on my phone. Like I expected that in the evening because I've done that, while I sleep, but I didn't expect that in the middle of the day, but I had somehow let it. I didn't specifically tell it to do that, but I let it happen because it said, hey, would you like to do this? Yeah, I'd love to do that. Boom. So with complexity, it comes a little more work we have to do to figure it out, but this kind of gives you a summary of how to manage that. So you don't have to just turn the whole thing off and give up on it. And then another one I want to point out, password manager. Oh, geez. Okay. Trouble typing password manager. Here you go. Should you use Apple's new password manager in their latest OS versions? And this is something that, as it says here, we've recommended 1Password. I know some people swear by LastPass for years because really Apple has not been up to the same level. It just hasn't. But they're getting pretty close with the latest updates. So as the summary kind of says here at the bottom, I think it does. Where is it? Maybe it was at the top. Basically, yes, if you're new to password management and you don't have a password manager, definitely embrace this. It's a huge step forward. It's better than nothing. And you may not need a dedicated password manager. If you already have a password manager, like I do, like Ross, I don't know about you, I'm not sure I'm going to give up 1Password anytime soon. It's kind of entrenched in my life at this point.
Yeah, it is. And I've actually gone through Safari, so my iCloud keychain. I've gone through Firefox and Chrome as well. I've been trying to remove any saved passwords from those browsers or other services and make sure that they're in 1Password, because that makes sure that if by just having all this really sensitive information in one spot instead of possibly scattered into all of these different locations, gonna have a better time.
Yeah. I agree. And I'm very diligent about keeping everything in 1Password. That's my sort of go-to list, but I also use the Apple system as well. So it's leaking into my workflow more and more. And, especially it's just easy to keep it updated. Like it'll prompt you when I update 1Password, it'll prompt me, especially on my iPad or phone, do you want to save this password in Keychain or iCloud? And I often say yes. So it's okay to have a hybrid system, but you do kind of want to have one to be your go-to, the one that you rely on. And I consider 1Password to be my solution, and iCloud to be a supplemental to that. And just okay. And then the last thing, I know I've mentioned this before, but holiday gifts, I like to see, okay, the best Apple related gifts for 2020, 1 year ago? No, that was last year. Okay, this is where Google search is so much better than some local website search. But I think if I go to Ntiva, it's right at the top here. The best Apple related gifts for 2021. Okay, so I just want to point out again, if you're looking for last minute gifts, AirTags are very popular. And I did read today, Ross, where Apple released some new feature for Android users, an app for Android users where they can scan and see if anyone has dumped an AirTag on them somewhere. I guess that's the idea.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good idea. It's as soon as you have the ability to have these really low cost, ostensibly GPS tags on things because they work over Bluetooth, all these places. It is possible for that technology to be abused. And so I think it's a solid show of good faith from Apple to have prepared that tool for non-Apple environments to be able to find these things and just make sure that there's no foul play.
For sure. And so the last thing I want to say is this is our last live stream of the year. We originally had one scheduled for, I think, the week of Christmas, but we're not going to do that one. And next year, we're going to have these once a month. It's going to be the first Wednesday of every month, I believe. So we're going to move from Tuesday to Wednesday at 12 noon. So yeah, our time slot's moving. You'll have to watch reruns during the off season, and we'll see. We'll see you next year. If anyone does have any feedback, I'm building a schedule for next year. So I would love to get more interaction and feedback from our audience, those that listen live and those that watch later. So please contact me and let me know what you'd like to learn more about, what you'd like to what you'd like to see from Ross and I and the team here. We're gonna get some more guests in like we had earlier in the year, get some guests back, and keep this going. We also have a cyber security resilience webinar, I think the second Wednesday of the month. And then we're going to have a new Microsoft focused, maybe Windows PC Microsoft focused, the third Wednesday of every month. So we're going to have 3 different live streams. Obviously, Ross and I are only doing the Apple one. Don't freak out, Ross. We're not doing all 3 of those.
Hooray.
Yeah. Okay. Have a great Christmas, Boxing Day, New Year's. I'm sure there's some other holidays in there I didn't get to, but see y'all next year. Thanks.
Cheers. Bye. Take care.